Today I'm going to answer two questions. Will there be pets in heaven, and will we eat there? To learn what St. Thomas has to say about these questions, stick around. Hello, my name is Father Ambrose Little, and I teach philosophy at the Dominican House of Studies. Welcome to Aquinas 101, Big Questions, Little Answers, the series where I do my best to answer your big questions about philosophy, theology, and more. Before we turn to our questions, let me just say that we will be dealing with questions that are uncertain, speculative, and frankly, somewhat frivolous. Individuals often do not like St. Thomas's answers to these questions and wonder why he would bother answering them. But the answer is simple. People ask those questions. What is more, though the content may be of less importance in the wider scheme of things, nevertheless the consideration of them allows us to think about what heaven will be like, and that is in no way frivolous. Therefore, while you may not like St. Thomas's answers to these questions, remember that he is no fool, and his answers come from some hefty thinking and praying about eternal life, so it is worthwhile taking his answers seriously, even if we don't like them. With that in mind, let's turn to our questions. Our first question today asks, if animals have no immortal souls, are there pets in heaven? For those of you who don't know, St. Thomas and others think that non-rational animals, that is, non-human animals, do not have immortal souls. This is because to have an immortal soul requires that there be a power of the soul that is not completely dependent upon matter. Only humans appear to have such a power, which we identify with the activities of the intellect and will. If you would like to know more about why St. Thomas thinks this, we have an episode of Aquinas 101 that discusses this point, and I have a lecture on this topic in our podcast, where you can find more information. One way to specify this question is to articulate it in this way. Will there be pets with the saints in heaven after the general resurrection? The answer is unclear, and there is no set teaching on the matter. I will say that it is metaphysically possible that there will be non-rational animals in the eternal world after the resurrection of the dead, so it is metaphysically possible that there could be pets in heaven. However, if we follow St. Thomas on this issue, then there will not actually be pets in heaven. Why does he think that? St. Thomas based this conclusion on the idea that there will be no generation or corruption in the new creation, which means no new births and no new deaths. Because animals and plants are subject to corruption and would need to generate new members of their species for the species to survive, it seems that they will not be there in the eternal kingdom. Here is what he says in his Summa Contra Gentiles, quote, "But the other animals, the plants, and the mixed bodies, those entirely corruptible both wholly and in part, will not remain at all in that state of incorruption. In this way, then, must the saying of the Apostle be understood, the fashion of this world passeth away, that this appearance of the world which now is will cease to be, but the substance will remain." End quote. And so I'm afraid to say that St. Thomas says there will be no pets in heaven. Moving on to our next question, a viewer asks a related question on life after the resurrection. Will we really eat and drink, bodily speaking, in heaven? St. Thomas says the following in the Summa Contra Gentiles, quote, "In this life, the use of food is ordered to an end, for one takes food to convert it into the body by digestion. If then there is to be food at that time, it will be for the purpose of converting it into body." End quote. Okay, let's stop there for a moment and consider what St. Thomas is saying. What St. Thomas is saying is that we need to eat and drink now because our bodies naturally store the energy we need in the body as flesh and blood, and therefore we naturally use up flesh and blood throughout the course of our daily activities. If we do not eat and drink, our bodies begin to wither because we are using up the stored energy in our very flesh and blood. Therefore, the purpose of food and drink is to maintain our healthy body mass so that we can continue living. With that in mind, let's see how St. Thomas continues his discussion of this topic. He writes, quote, "Therefore, since nothing will be resolved from the resurrected body, because it will be an incorruptible body, we will have to say that everything converted into the body from nourishment must be devoted to its growth. However, man will rise from the dead in his due quantity, as was said above. Therefore, if he were to eat, he would achieve a bodily size beyond moderation, for an immoderate size is that which exceeds the quantity due." End quote. Okay, so what is St. Thomas saying here? To begin with, note that he is relying on certain conclusions he has already made about the resurrected body. The resurrected body will be incorruptible, which, among other things, means that we will not suffer energy loss. As a result, our bodies after the resurrection will not need food and drink to sustain them. Therefore, all that eating and drinking would do to the resurrected body is to increase its body mass beyond its healthy weight, which is not a good thing. So he says we will not eat and drink in the resurrection because such would be equivalent to overeating. But wait, you might say, didn't Jesus eat with the disciples after the resurrection? Here's what St. Thomas has to say about that. Quote, "With regard to Christ, however, we ought to say that he ate after the resurrection not out of necessity, but to establish the truth of his resurrection. Hence, that food of his was not changed into flesh, but returned to the prior material state. But there will be no such reason for eating in the general resurrection." End quote. So while Jesus ate to show the disciples that he had a real body, we have no reason to believe that there will be eating and drinking in the world to come. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Big Questions, Little Answers. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, may God bless you and keep you in his grace. I hope that answers all your questions. But if not, please let us know by submitting your big questions using hashtag #AskAFriar in the YouTube comments and on social media. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, because it matters what you think.